Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here. We are here with both YouTube and Twitch live, and we're talking about the last one for today at least, the last set that has been fully revealed, the last class, the new expansion Showdown in Badlands, and that is Warlock. And this is a very interesting class to talk about because all of these cards are synergy cards. We're gonna have to change how we talk about this a little bit. So let's talk about the first one here is that there's three main synergies. There's like discard synergy, barrel of sludge synergy, which are kind of intertwined, and then there's also the excavate stuff. So let's talk first about the barrel of sludge synergy. If you watch my neutral card review, you already know what barrel of sludge is. This is that card which could be generated by, there was at least one or two neutral cards that generated this. Anyway, this is a 2-mana FEL spell, which when this is played, discarded, or destroyed, deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy. That is what a lot of these cards are built around. So the first one we have here is Disposal Assistant. 2-mana 3/2, Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Put a barrel of sludge on the bottom of your deck. So that seems initially not particularly useful, right? But we're going to get to that. Obviously, in a vacuum, this card is not great because 2-mana 3/2, 2-mana 3/2s aren't great. But we'll start talking about that when we get into some of these synergies. So the next one we have here, the other way to generate these cards, Sludge on Wheels. 3-mana 1/5 Rush. Whenever this takes damage, get a barrel of sludge and add 1 to the bottom of your deck. By the way, in case you're wondering, it's kind of obvious since this is a spell, but it seems like informally they've added get as kind of a keyword that just means add to hand. So for other things, it's less obvious. It's less obvious, but for this case, obviously you get it added to your hand. So that's a bit more powerful than this because it actually, you have something that's useful that you can actually play, but you also get one added to the bottom of your deck. And as well, since this is it's a 3-mana 1/5 rush, you're probably not going to throw this into something that it dies. Sometimes you might have to, but like usually this thing's going to take damage at least twice. So you're going to get 2 playable Barrel of Sludge in your hand, as well as 2 in the bottom of your deck. So that array seems, this card by itself is not great, but this card by itself should be really, really good actually. Next up, we'll talk about actually fracking. Let's talk about fracking, because this is a joke because it's basically a reprint of tracking. Tracking nowadays it's discovered from your deck, but the original version of tracking, if you weren't around at the time, was that it was effectively the same, except it would discard the other 2 options. This is basically that, although instead of doing it from random cards in your deck, this goes directly from the bottom of your deck. So that is the synergy you're looking at, where you are, the idea is that you put some of these barrels of sludge onto the bottom of your deck, and then you can, once you play this, you can discard 2 of them. Potentially, if you have more than 2, you can draw 1. Ideally, you put exactly 2 on the bottom of your deck, and then you play this, and then you get, 6 free damage immediately. These things, by the way, they target the lowest health minion, right? So the lowest health enemy, which could be FaZe. But they're going to snipe and kill any smaller minions that are on the board, so they're going to be pretty good in that case. And yeah, so this will be like a 1-mana, I don't know, like a multi-shot that is probably going to hit what you want to hit, so that makes this like really, really powerful already. And it's worth saying that, even if you don't have that synergy, this is already going to be a pretty draftable card, because tracking is that, and then it's effectively tracking, and unless you're really worried about running out of deck, that's fine, right? I mean, your Warlock, you have life tap, you can tap to find things, but this doesn't cost you health, so like it's a fine card by itself. But that synergy is very, very strong, so that makes this whole, if you can get this package, it's really, really powerful. And we haven't even mentioned the best payoff card for this yet, which is the Waste Remover, because this is a 4-mana 7/7 demon. At the end of your turn, destroy the bottom 3 cards of your deck. And that is how you're wondering, what do you mean by like discard or destroy? Well, you can also destroy those sludges at the bottom of your deck, and then they all shoot off. So that is really, really strong, because this is like a reprint of FEL REAVER, and this is already a better card than FEL REAVER, because FEL REAVER is a 5-mana 8/8, and that would potentially trigger multiple times in one turn. This is a 4-mana 7/7 that only triggers once per turn. This is really, it's already really, really good, right? with no synergy, this card is already going to be one of the better cards in the game, but that potential synergy makes it broken. So if you can pull off this package at all, it's completely insane, right? I mean, just imagine like a 4-mana 7/7 that deals 9 damage effectively is a battle cry. Like, excuse me? Yeah, so very, very strong. I am assuming, like, they do shoot off from the bottom of your deck, right? I'm assuming that that's how they work. Because it's destroyed, so that's got to be how it works, right? That's the whole point, right? I mean, that's just like, it's like a constructed thing that might be fair and constructed, but like, that's just like, as far as Arena, that's way too strong. Like, it's just crazy. Yeah, so that's just like a pretty easy synergy to go put off, because that big payoff card, these cards were all low rarity, right? If you look at that, this is a rare, but you don't really need that one. This is a common, this is a rare, and the 4-mana 7/7 was a common. So this is just like going to be very accessible in Arena, and it's going to be like any deck that remotely pulls that off is just going to win, basically, anytime it does. It's not going to be the most consistent necessarily any draw-wise, but super insane high roll. Anyway, next up, let's start talking about Excavate once again with Smokestack. 1-mana FEL spell. Epics, you won't see it too much. It's interesting. That makes it a little less accessible than I think some of the other Excavates. Deal 1 damage to a minion if it dies, Excavate a treasure. This is essentially just a reprint of Mortal Coil, right? It's the same card, except instead of drawing, it's Excavate. Excavate is better than draw, usually. Maybe not if you only have... If it's your only Excavate, you might rather draw than Excavate, but like, you know, Excavate opens up synergy for future Excavates. If you don't know what Excavate is, let me have this thing here. These are all the cards you can Excavate. You essentially... I have a longer description in my neutral card review video, but essentially you go for the top row. First you discover a 1 cost, then a 2 cost, then a 3 cost, and then... Since you're an Excavate class like Warlock, half the classes are Excavate classes. Any class that has Excavate class cards has a big win condition to get. This is the one you get from Warlock. So that is the Azurite Snake, a 4-mana 5/5 elemental beast. Battle Cry. Your hero steals 10 health from the enemy hero. And that means you steal the health, you steal maximum health. That means if you play 3, your opponent will not be able to heal above 20 if you play one of these. And by the way, you can Brewmaster this, you could once you've excavated 4 times, it starts over, you can do it again, you can discover another one of these. So it's very possible you could excavate like 8 times and then Brewmaster one of these, and then literally your opponent would have 0 maximum health and there's nothing they could do, they'd be dead. Right? It's very possible you could trigger this 3 times, and then the game's just over, unless they gain maximum health somehow. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, this card by itself is just essentially a much better Mortal Coil. You already draft Mortal Coil pretty high, because Mortal Coil is really good, and yeah, that's a good card. Next up, we have Trolley Problem. 3-mana epic spell. Discard your lowest cost spell, summon 2 3/3 tram cars with Rush. With Quick Draw, you don't discard, which could be a downside, because if you have a Sludge in your hand, you might actually want to discard it, right? So the Quick Draw could actually be a downside sometimes. But obviously, apart from you having probably exactly Sludge in your hand, I guess you could have some of those other... There's only like that one. Nothing that's likely to be an Arena, right? There's probably nothing else you'd want to discard other than the Sludge. So normally the Quick Draw is going to be an upside. But otherwise, I mean, sometimes you might just have to do this, right? Because you might... I mean, 3 mana for 2 3/3 rushes is really, really good. And if you Quick Draw it, it's really, really good because you don't have to pay anything. So, very powerful card. If you don't have... And by the way, if you don't have a spell in your hand, that's not that likely nowadays. Then, no, I believe you can just play it. If you don't have a spell, you just won't discard. They generally don't require you. Discard cards don't require you to actually be able to meet the condition. So you should be able to play it without a spell also. Next up, we have Furnace Fuel. It's a 4-mana fire spell. When this is played, discarded, or destroyed, draw 2 cards. Kind of troll it they made this the common card, because this is like probably the worst card in the set, for Warlock at least. This is just not a good card, unfortunately. Like, I mean, you have to like discard this or something. Usually you can't destroy it on the bottom of your deck or something because it's just not going to be there. So like you have to discard this, and it's just not that likely. There's not that many ways to discard right now. Obviously there's like Trolley Problem. Like I looked here at like discard stuff. Like there's just not that much. You'd have to have like Felhound or something basically, right? Like this card. Otherwise, like it's just not that likely. So I think you just wouldn't want to draft this, right? Like Warlock is not a class you'd really want to play like 4 mana draw to. You just have better things to do because you can always life tap and then, you know, it's the same thing. So you just wouldn't really want to take this unless you really add enough synergy that you really thought you could actually pull off the discard. It's gonna make a wild discard Warlock. It will just only get better, yeah. They probably still play this because I think that deck ran out cards sometimes. That was the only way it lost, basically. They probably do play that still. It's Pot of Greed, right? Next up is Moarg Drillfist. 4 mana 4/5 taunt, Mech Demon, Death Rattle, Excavate a Treasure. There are a couple of these excavates that are death rattles, which makes it a little bit awkward. They're delayed, but I mean, we've already talked about how an excavate is basically better than a draw, and this is a taunt Yeti that also does like a better draw. So this card is just insanely powerful. Slightly a little unfortunate that it can get denied by silence. Your opponent probably will want to silence it because they probably will also know how strong Excavate is, because if this is absolutely 100% worth silence, if you happen to know that it's going to be denying their third or fourth Excavate, even in the future, right, it's 100% worth it. So like a shaman might want to just hex this too. It would be like 100% worth it, honestly. But yeah, it's a very, very, very powerful card. You're going to draft it every time probably. Next up, we have Popgar the Putrid. 4 mana 2/6 legendary. Your FEL spells cost 1 less and have lifesteal. Battlecry, get 2 barrels of sludge. So I guess the idea of this is that if you haven't discarded your barrels of sludge yet, you play this, you get a couple more, and then you just rapid fire them, right? You probably don't play this. I mean, you could play this on 4, but you'd probably rather play this on like turn 6 or 7 and then just, you know, go pew pew pew, basically. As a result, because, you know, Warlock always loves to have healing, right? And this is, if you think of this as a 6 mana card, it's a 6 mana 2/6, deal 6, heal 6. That seems good to me, right? Seems pretty darn good. You can imagine that's like a minion that's okay, in addition to, you know, it's probably going to be better than a Death Strike, you know, Lifesteal Fireball thing. It's probably just better than that, efficiency wise, so seems good. It's in the legendary spot, so you probably don't take it over like Sargeras or something, but it's just a good card. You'd be really happy to have this with Sargeras because it would help you get 2 Sargeras. But yeah, it's a really good card, I think. We're going to talk about Waste Remover, and then the last card here, the Excavate synergy for Warlock, is Tram Conductor Gary. His name is pronounced like Gif, or Jif, or Jerry. Yes, of course. 7 mana 4/4, Battlecry. If you've excavated twice, summon 6/3/3 Tram cards with Rush. That's just an absurd amount of stats, and they almost all have Rush, right? 18/18 Rush. I mean, this card effectively, this even makes like, excavating twice probably is not that hard to do. Although, the thing that sucks is that the spell was an epic, and the minion was a rare, so it might actually be somewhat hard to do. Harder than some of the other excavate classes. But, I mean, if you pull this off, I mean, this is such an insane win condition, right? Because it's just so many stats. This even makes, what I was going to say is like, this even makes Trial by Fire look bad in comparison, right? It's just so many stats that all of Rush. This is more Rush than Trial by Fire. Trial by Fire is only 15/15. This is 18/18. This is like a super premium pick, assuming you think, as long as you have like a couple excavates, right? As if you think you have a reasonable chance of just excavating twice, that's all you have to do. Then it's just really, really good. With that, I think that is all we have to say for this. Appreciate everyone for hanging out on Twitch and on YouTube as well. See you guys in the next one as soon as they we'll do this some other time, whenever. I'll probably do the same thing. I don't know when they're going like class by class, effectively unlocking all the cards. They're probably finishing, like we ever talked about Shaman. Looks like they're gonna do Mage and then Demon Hunter, and then, oh yeah, because they delayed some of the Hunter cards, and then Paladin, and then we'll see. Yeah, but they're going class by class, so we'll probably have another batch of these in a couple days. Anyway, appreciate everyone. See you all in the next one.